Daldøs is a running fight board game only known from a few coastal locations in Scandinavia, where its history can be traced back to around 1800. The game is notable for its unusual four-sided dice. In Denmark it is known as dal'døs in northern and western Jutland, and possibly as dal'døs on Bornholm. In Norway it is known under the name of dal'døs from Jarara, where, unlike in Denmark, a continuous tradition of the dal'døs game exists. A rather similar game called saku, using virtually identical dice, is known in a number of variants from the Sea Sami in northern Norway, Finland and Russia. Otherwise, the closest relatives of this game appear to be the tab games from northern Africa and southwestern Asia, possibly apart from one unlabeled diagram in a codex from southern England. Typical materials. Board. The board is boat-shaped and has 3 parallel rows of holes, 2 of which have 16 holes each, while the middle row has an extra hole in the prow of the ship. Pieces. Each player has 16 spatula-shaped pieces with the bottom end fitting into the holes of the board. One player has pieces that are rather wide and thin, whereas the other player's pieces are more obelisk-shaped. At the beginning of the game, player A's pieces are placed in the holes of row A so that the spatulas are perpendicular to the row, and equivalently for player B. Later in the game, the pieces will be turned so that the spatula is parallel to the rows. Dice. 2 special dice are used. Each die is a 4-sided rolling pin with pyramidal or rounded ends, preventing the rolling pin from standing on end. They may be about 2 by 2 centimeters in cross-section, and 4 centimeters long. The 4 sides are marked A, 2, 3 and 4. According to some sources, the dal is opposite to 3. Rules. Starting the game, both players throw the dice. The highest throw begins the game. Dalling pieces cannot move until they have been daled. A die showing the dal allows the player to dal one piece, which means to turn it parallel to its row and move it one position ahead. With the first dal, only the piece closest to the stern can be daled, and then it goes into row C. With no daled pieces, a throw with no dals is a lost move. Moves. The daled pieces move according to dice throws. Each player's pieces move first through the home row to the stern, then through row C towards the prow, then into the enemy row back towards the stern. From here it moves into row C again, etc., never returning to the home row. The showings of the 2 dice may be either added and used to move one piece, or used separately for 2 different pieces. E.g., a throw of a dal and a 3 allows the player to dal one piece and then move another daled piece 3 positions, to dal one piece and move it a total of 4 positions, to move 2 daled pieces, 1 3 positions and the other 1 position, or to move 1 daled piece 4 positions. The showings of both dice must be used in a move. If that is not possible, the showing of one of the dice must be used. If that is not possible either, the move is lost. A throw of dal always gives the right to an extra throw. Object. The object of the game is to remove all enemy pieces from the board. An enemy piece is removed when another piece ends at the same position. When the dice are added, only an enemy piece at the final position can be removed. Enemy pieces can be jumped, but are not removed thereby. Friendly pieces cannot be jumped at all. The game ends when one player has no pieces left. Variations. The shape of the board, the pieces and the dice vary. E.g., the dal marked A in Denmark is marked X in Norway, and I in some modern reconstructions. In the rules supplied with some reconstructions of the game, the direction of the moves is reversed. However, this difference has no real consequences. In some reconstructions, the pieces are cylindrical with one end painted black for player A and white for player B. Undaled pieces are turned with the painted end down. Some sources specify that only a player's undaled piece closest to the stern may be daled. With this rule, the pieces need not be designed so that one can see whether a piece is daled or not. Instead, the next piece to be daled can be indicated by a marker. Also, some sources indicate that when the dice are added and used to move one piece, Enemy pieces at the intermediate position as well as at the final position are removed. The endgame can be tedious, so it has been suggested to agree that the first player to have only one piece left loses. Also, the players may agree to declare the game a draw. The number of holes in each row is rather arbitrary. Instead of the 16 plus 17 plus 16 used in the Danish game, 12 plus 13 plus 12 are used in Norway, with 12 pieces for each player. In either case, there is no obvious reason for the extra hole in the middle row, other than to distinguish the two ends of the board, which is necessary to define the direction of play. Strategy. The game is simple, and one will soon realize that it pays to have dal'd pieces waiting in their home row close to the prow, and also in the enemy row behind all enemy pieces. Most dal throws are used to dal pieces rather than to move already dal'd pieces. Probabilities. It is often useful to have an idea of the probability that a given piece can be removed in the next round. Suppose player A has a piece A1, and player B has a piece B1 a few positions behind A1 with no other pieces in between. If it is B's turn, B's chances of being able to remove A1 using B1 in this turn depends on how many positions B1 is behind A1. Note that the largest probability, 2/3, is found when B1 is 4 positions behind A1. And note the rapid decrease in the probabilities for larger distances. These values assume that B has sufficient possibilities to use part of the throw elsewhere on the board. E.g., with a distance of 2, B must either throw a dal'døs, or one die must show 2, while B is able to use the other die to move another piece elsewhere on the board. The table row use of dal'døs indicates how many positions B should move B1 at a throw of dal'døs in order to maximize the probability of removing A1, including the extra row. If B has an additional piece B2 behind B1, but no more than 4 positions behind A1, the first few probabilities are increased by including the possibility of jumping over A1 with B1 and then removing A1 using B2. Note that now, the largest probability is 3/4, and is found when B1 is just 1 position behind A1. History and sources. The origins of dal'døs are unknown, but it is strikingly similar to some games in the tab group from Northern Africa and Western Asia, widely distributed during the Muslim expansion. One may conjecture that some seagoing trade contact has carried a tab game to Scandinavia, either directly from the Arab world, or possibly via England, where a codex from Cernaby, Dorset, from the second half of the 13th century possibly shows a dal'døs board with 12 plus 12 plus 12 holes, after both players have made their first move. The game must have arrived in Scandinavia not much later than 1800, and quite possibly a few centuries before that. A connection involving the Swedish Vikings known as Varangians, mercenaries for the Byzantine Empire before 1100, has been suggested. In a Danish historical novel, Fru Maria Grubbe, written in 1876 by J. P. Jacobsen, Maria plays dal'døs with her husband in 1661. But most likely, Jacobsen knew the game from his childhood enlisted in the 1850s. In an article from 1927 by H. Bilskov Jansen, Daldøs, Dansk Studier, Copenhagen 1927, pp. 96-100, the game is described in detail and the rules are given. The author had found one of the few surviving specimens from a farm near Thisted, a farm where Jacobsen used to come as a child. This game is now at Thisted Museum. Another game from Mors is now at National Museet. From Bornholm, no sources mention the game, but a local saying spille dal'døs, meaning to live beyond one's means, has been recorded in 1856. A similar meaning has been recorded in Jutland. In Jarøa in Norway, a game of unknown age is kept in Harbygda Museum, a part of Jæger Museet. Jarøa had close trade connections with the Danish regions where dal'døs was played, and also with northern Norway, where saku was played. The name of the game in the name dal'døs, the first syllable refers to the throw dal. The marking A on the dal'døs dice probably stands for ace or the like, but the etymology of the name dal remains a mystery. One theory connects dal to medieval English daily, meaning die. Dos is probably a variant of a Nordic word traditionally used for the two on a die, related to Old French deux, surviving in the Danish word sinkedus, originally meaning a dice throw of 5 and 2. Most of the tab games and the Sumitsaku game are likewise named after the dice throw 1, which is required to release the pieces so that they can start moving.